Hi everybody, Andy Kravlicher here to show you how to build a clean guitar preset like the one we used in Learn to Love Again by Kindred North. We're working with our trusty Axe-Fx 3 today and this Comparison Through and Through Special 7 FM, which is the only guitar I have right now tuned in the prerequisite tuning, which is drop F sharp on a 7 string. Now, as you can see, this preset is a pretty clean preset. There's just an input and an output connected straight to each other, so let's get to it. And I like to work kind of from the edges inward. So the first and the last things that are always going to be in the chain are going to be two compressors. The first compressor is going to be on 1176 type. It's called the JFET Studio compressor in an Axe-Fx 3, but any 1176 type compressor will do. This is set to a ratio of 3:1 and has a threshold of -40 dB. It'll also, do some drive compensation, but primarily its role is to squash down the transients. So the attack time is going to be 0.4 milliseconds. The last thing that happens in the chain is a compressor as well. This compressor is going to be a totally different type. It's an optical compressor, and this is meant to be kind of like an LA2A, which glues the whole thing together. So without the compressors, we will have this type of tone. And with the compressors, it'll be so you can tell that it's going to be a lot more even in its notes, and you can also see the compressors working together here. So the second thing I will add to this preset is going to be a drive pedal. When I'm working with a clean sound, I like to be adding a Timmy, or a Timothy as it's called in the Axe-Fx, and I like the up setting on the little flip switch there. As you can see, the gain is pretty minimal. It's less than 1, so it's not adding any actual distortion. It's just going to be adding a little bit of hair to the clean channel and its own personal IQ settings, which are going to be cutting a little bit of bass and cutting no treble at all. As you can tell from the screenshot, the Timmy tone controls act as cuts. So if the treble is on 0, that means all the treble is making it through. And if the treble would be on 10, that means none of the treble would be coming through. So all of the treble is coming through and almost all of the bass. So the bass is at about 2.5, and then there's a little bit of gain on that. So from there, I will go to an amp, and that is a point of contention. Some people like to build these 80s clean tones without an amp at all, and I will tend to put in a Soldano because I record everything through a Soldano. So for the Axe-Fx, I like the Solo 88 Clean, which is the X88R preamp clean channel on there. And if you put that on the bright setting and you have the settings I talk about here, then you have your bass, mid, and treble a little bit up, presence a little bit up, almost no depth at all on the depth control, but then you have your bass and mids around half, and that'll sound like this. It just squashes it together and gives it that mix-friendly tone. And already from here, you can start, without doing any modulation or time effects. You can hear the single coil, all right? You can start doing. So we're giving it something good to work with. Now from here on, it's going to be a wet, dry, wet setup. So we're going from 1 lane into 3 lanes, but we're going to pass it through a pitch block first. And the pitch block I like to use is this, and you can see the settings right here. These are just settings I put up here for now. There's no no definitive answers here, but about 11 cents down and about 13 cents up, and some delays as well. 9.5 milliseconds, 6.4 milliseconds, just to give it a little bit of a delay as well. We're already getting there. And from there on, we're going to start building the lush, spacious, time-based effects. And we're going to go to 3 lanes from here. So each lane is going to have its own chorus, its own delay, and its own reverb. And then the middle lane is just going to stay clean, and it's just going to keep the output as general. So it's going to be a wet, a dry, and a wet, basically. We're going to put in a stereo tri-chorus, a tri-stereo chorus rack mount compressor, that 80s rack chorus that everybody would use back then. And it'll be set to just standard settings that right out of the box, these are the settings you get on an Axe Effects. They have the depth here. I might play around with those a little bit. Stereo spread is at 100% and the mix is at 100%. Then for the second chorus, I like to put in a Dimension D. Now Dann Huff used to run a Dimension D and a chorus linearly into each other. I like to prefer them kind of parallel to each other. So while the stereo chorus is doing its thing, the Dimension D is also doing its thing parallel to that. And I also prefer the first setting on the Dimension D, which is kind of the least aggressive one, but it's also kind of the slowest swirling one, so to speak. And it'll give you rate and depth controls for that as well. I might play around with those a little bit later. Then after that, I'll build in 2 delays and one, these are just standard. There's nothing weird about these delays at all. There's a memory man, a stereo memory man, which is, just standard delay. And then I'll put in another delay, and just to prove to you that it's not about, and this is a tape delay. So we're not doing 2290 or digital delay or ducking delay or anything like that. This is just standard good old fashioned delay sounds. Doesn't really matter. What matters is the mixes are a little bit higher than mixes at about 30% for both. I'll up this one up a little bit, and that's because we have the clean signal in the middle, so we don't need to actually be keeping these mixes down. We can afford to have the top and bottom lane pretty wet. And then we'll put in 2 reverbs, and the first reverb is going to be a Pleiades, which is kind of like a shimmer reverb, and the second reverb is going to be just kind of a more standard reverb. It's going to be a large hall reverb, and now I'm just going to connect these up. This to that. This to that, 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 and then from there, this to that, and this to that. And let's see what that sounds like. That shimmer reverb is there as well. That size needs to come down a little bit. Time needs to come down a little bit as well. We can up the mix a little bit more. I think we can afford to have a little bit more reverb on both. We can afford to have a little bit more delay as well. And then the choruses, we can play around with the depth on those. Let's do a depth of 60%. Everywhere, across the board, we'll put in 60%. It's okay if it's a little bit off. It's supposed to be like analog stuff, so. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. And if we go back to Learn to Love Again as a song, that's going to be like. it. You can kind of play around with that and go, you know. So thanks for checking out this quick tutorial on how to build an 80s clean preset. And don't forget to check out Learn to Love Again by Kindred North. Out now.